Hey, welcome back to a new video. This is part 4 of creating our player dev helper system. And today we will keep going on making the database and actually create the player in the database when they log in if they aren't in the database. So let's just get right back into it. So next, we want to create the next function and call this create character in database. Here you want to write GUID because we need this argument for creating the player in the database. Now like we talked about in the last video about the jar db execute, we would write jar db execute. And now what we want to do now is we want to, like you saw last time, I can find it again, so like you saw last time here. So the jar db execute, you see here they call the delete, but we don't want to delete something, we want to add the player. And to do that in SQL, you need to write insert into, so it knows where you want to insert something, and then the table and much more data. So let's just get started writing. So now write insert into, and now you want to write the database name or database table name. That's player dev helper system underscore system. For me, if you called yours something else, you need to write that. Next, we want, like when you open up, to write arguments, parentheses, I think they are called. We open here, and now what we're doing here is basically we are giving it data. So here we tell it all the fields. So all the fields are all of these up here. So because we are a bit lazy today, we actually can just go up here from right after select, go over here and just copy all the way to here before from, Control C after selecting, and then go in here and click Control V. Now we have this, and it's so important that this is the correct order. So like if we look here, you can actually see that I messed up here. Oh no, what? My table is a little bugged today. Let's see here if that fixed it. Yeah, that's fixed. Okay, just what I was meant to say here was make sure that these tables, when you write this code, make sure everything is in the correct order. Let me make this window a bit bigger here. Make sure that GUID is here, def count is next, and then everything is the correct order. Because if you write hash reward 4 here and hash reward 2 here, that means it would actually put what you set this one would be put into this one, and vice versa. So it's important that everything is correct. Let's get back to that. So now that we have told it all the different rows or columns we want to add stuff into, it still needs the values. So what you do is make a space here and write in uppercase values, and a space again, parentheses again, I think they are called, and then double quotes inside. And now comes the big thing here, which can get confusing. You inside here, you want to write dot because we want to use this value, the GUID, for the GUID. So here we say dot 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 to number and you parentheses again in UID. Now that we have this, we want to make a new space and then dot dot. Now we put the GUID into the GUID field or the column. Next, what we want to do now is we want to write comma 0, comma 0. So this is death count, this is reward 1, comma 0, reward 2, comma 0, reward 3, comma 0, reward 4. So this is all we have to do. So now we actually create the character inside the table with a starting death count of 0 and the has reward unlocked thing for all of them at 0, so it's not still it's not unlocked, like the player haven't gotten it yet. So now next thing we do, just to follow along in the code while we watch the command or the window, the console, we can say print and we can say player, double quotes, player has been created. And that is basically all for the create character in database. Now, next thing we can get, or next thing we can do, is actually go ahead and update this. Or no, you know what? Let's wait with the updating because we need to still set some other things up before we can do the updating. So let's now go ahead and go back into the core. And now let's try to add the player into the database. So it's actually our first time adding the player to the database now. So now, down here, what you want to do now is do a call to this one. And what we can do just to save ourselves an extra call to the database, so it will still need to call it, but for us it's just easier because we know it automatically happens because we do the call. We can take this create character in database function, copy it, so select it and Control C, and here where it says the player is not found, click Control V and parentheses, and here you send the GUID. Since we have the GUID already from check-in, we just use the same value. And now what happens is that when that is done, we can actually say return player found. Or we can, not return player found. What we can now do is that we actually so that what we can do here is we can actually make this a little easier for ourselves. So we can say create character in database. Here we copy this and we go up to the player not found, and we paste it with Control V, double parentheses, and here we give it the GUID. Reason we do this and the reason we don't return the player found is because the player was never found. So when it's not found, we just create him in the database, and then when the player logs out, we will update that row with the data for the character or player. So right now, what we can actually do is we go in here. we go back to the database, go down here, and we return and code brackets, and then we return the DOS player existent database equals DOS player existent database, comma, create character and database equals create character and database. Now go back to your core script. At the top, you write local, or I just like to call it local, local player, let's call it player dev helper system underscore system, and we say equals, and then require, and parentheses, I think again, and we write in here with double quotes, we write player dev helper underscore database, because that's the script's name, so we basically include this script via this name. So now you can see if I hover over here, you can see I have access to both the functions. So now when a player joins, what we want to do is we want to go in here and then find or create user in database. What we do now is we player dev helper underscore system dot, and now we give it the name, or we call the function DOS player existent database, and here we give it the GUID. And now next up, what happens right now is that this function, or when this happens, line 32, we run this function, and that function is here. It checks, it checks with the GUID if it can find a player, and if it does, it selects all of these rows. But if it doesn't, it creates the character for us in the database, so it's prepared for when we save the player again. And if it was found, we return the whole row with all the data. So what you would do is actually here we want to store it inside player found. So we have it inside, we have the player found inside a variable. So now we have the player here. So if it exists, we get the player. If not, we don't. We want to actually test this to see if we can get the player. And if we can, then we want to print the ID. So we want to print the GUID up here. So what we can do here is we can say if, and we want to say player found, then int. So if the player is found, so if this is not nothing or nil, then we know a player was found. So here we want to say print, and we want to say player found with this GUID, and then we want to do the double dots, and then we want to say player found and colon. And here, so here, because we are basically using because we are using int in here in our database, we use int here, and as you see here, it says the signed ranges and the unsigned ranges. So just, you can see it says unsigned. So we want to use the unsigned version. So we want to get the unsigned int. To do that in Eluna, you would go under the documentation, and here you can see you can get uint 32, and that is, as you can see the description, it is cast to an unsigned 32-bit integer. So let's do that. So we write player found, get uint 32, and close it off. But here you can see we still need to write something. So if you click on it, you can see here we need the column. The column is this. These are columns. So since normally when you think about a list, like we have a player list, a table in Lua always starts at 1, but in other programming languages they start at 0, so you always count from 0 and up, and in Lua you count from 1 and up. Since this is basically another, like, this is what you can call a list or something or an array from another programming language, you could say. That means that we need to say 1 here or 0 here. So say 0 here to get column GUID. And for 1, if you write 1 here, you would get the def count. So basically the easiest way to think about this is if you look here and you see the number here, the column number, and then just -1 from it, then you know which one you get. So here we would just write 0 to get the GUID. So now let's head in game and test. So here you can see my server is open. Let me reload it. Reload Eluna, because we have so many changes. Now I start up WoW and I log in. Keep an eye on the window here. So I log in on this character, and you can see the player has been created. That's because our character wasn't in the database already. So this means that it doesn't print this because it never found the player. But if we look at the database now, inside data, and we click F5 to reload, you see my character is right inside the database now. And the GUID matches with the character I'm logged in on, because that's 10 for the character. So, just to show you how it would look when a player logs in who is already in the database, it will look like me going out of the game here, and look here. Now we can go in, and now you would see it says player found with this GUID is 10, because now we are inside the database, so it doesn't create us. I don't want to overwhelm everyone with a bunch of things just right off the bat, but here you see how we can use the database and connect it with our Eluna scripting. So if you like this video, please consider leaving a like and subscribe. And if you have any ideas for any other videos or scripts you would like me to create, please leave a comment down below in the comments. See you next time.